Did you know that Needham Athletics actually captured 2 state championships this past spring? We all know about boys volleyball, but girls ultimate Frisbee claimed that title as well. After COVID put the program's growth at a halt, head coach Esther Jesurum continued to see things through, which paid off with this year's successful season. I caught up with Coach Jesurum to learn more about the sport, this year's squad, and why more kids should consider joining Ultimate Frisbee. Take a look.
So first off, let's just start with the basics. Can you describe for people who aren't really that aware of Ultimate Frisbee, exactly what it is, how it's played?
Very high level. Ultimate Frisbee is played on a field, approximately the size of a soccer field. It's actually a little bit longer and a little bit narrower, but it's a field sport. You play 7v7. You score by passing the disc from one player to another. If the player catches the disc in the end zone, that's a goal. So in that way, it's like football. So that's like a touchdown, and that's 1 point. It moves like soccer because it's basically constantly in motion. And if there's a turnover, if you drop the disc or if it gets blocked or something like that, the other team just has possession and play continues. It kind of moves like basketball too, in the sense that it's the constant motion. And it also has some similarities to basketball in terms of you can't run with the disc. You can't, like in basketball, once you hold it, you can't walk with it. It starts off each 7 at their own end zone. One of them kicks it off to the other team by throwing it as far as they can. The other team has possession, is on offense. Everyone plays offense and defense. And it's a really it's fun athletic sport. The thing that makes it different than all other sports that I know about is that it's self-officiated. So there's no referees. Every player is responsible for knowing the rules and enforcing the rules.
The next question I wanted to ask you is, why do you think people should start playing Ultimate Frisbee? What do you think is the benefit? Why do you think it's a great sport?
I'm going to start with a little backstory. So 2 years ago, like about a week before everything shut down, Margaret Petrovich, who is in the guidance office at Sunita Williams, tried to kick off a new program where students that play Frisbee at the high school level would come and teach spirit of the game to elementary school students. The idea being that you could take the ideas of spirit of the game, the self-officiating parts, and translate that to recess. So when you play games at recess, like if you're going to play Gaga, instead of having a dispute where you have to come get a teacher to help, you could work out the disputes amongst yourselves. So we were teaching those concepts to the kids, and we had a kickoff event for the 3rd graders and up, and then where both coaches, the men's coach and the women's coach, and 2 boys seniors and 2 girls captains came and did little skits for the students. I think that the self-officiating part, the spirit of the game, is a great reason to pick up the sport. I also think that it is a real athletic sport. So if you're looking for a spring sport or an activity to keep you in shape, this can fill that hole.
So now let's talk about Needham's program. How do you think it has developed, or like you're saying, not developed as much? And what would you like to see going forward in the future?
In 2020, we had a good set of freshmen that joined the team that didn't have a season. And then in 2021, we had no freshmen join because there was no real activities fair to introduce them to the sport. And in this year, we had 2 freshmen and 2 sophomores join, but it's not the kind of membership that we would usually hope for. This year, we had a real activities fair again for the rising 9th graders, and we got a lot of interest, a lot of signups. So we're hoping that it'll start to trend to a bigger sport again.
So let's talk about a little bit about your season and your success this year. We saw that you won the Division II state championship. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about what this year was like?
Well, like I said, we had very low numbers. So we had about 13 girls total on the roster. We usually had about 10 girls show up for every game. I'm a pretty relaxed coach. So I understand that girls have other commitments. Some of them have jobs, some play like club sports, and can't come to every practice. But we usually had, between 6 and 12 show up to practice every day. So we have practices every day that we don't have games. We usually have about 2 games a week. And we'd have sometimes only 10 girls show up for games, but that's actually really great for their development because they get so much more playing time and they touch the disc more than they would in previous seasons. So we had a core group of girls that are very strong. So we had some juniors and seniors that were, comprised the core group that kind of took us to a really successful season. So I think we were, I can't remember, it was 10-2 or 11-2 for the season. And then of course the win at States was done with only 8 players. So we played 7v7. We had 3 games at States. The first game we had 1 sub. The second game we had no subs. And the third game we started with 1 sub, but 2 girls ended up having to sit out the last 3 points with heat stroke. And the opponent was gracious enough to let us play 6-on-6 for the last 3 points, which we won on Universe, which means that it was a tied going into the last point, and we won 8-7 the last game.
So I think we have a good overview of everything. Is there anything else you wanted to say, maybe to anyone potentially thinking about joining Ultimate Frisbee, about why they should?
I will say that in addition to Needham High being one of the best towns in terms of supporting the game, we also have a resource here. Not to brag, but my husband Jeff Brown is an 8-time national champion Frisbee player, 3-time world champion. He coached at Tufts for over 20 years. He coached me to coach, he's taught me how to coach. And he helps the girls out. He came to States and helped coach. He's a phenomenal resource. He also helps the boys team out. So boys, girls, we've got a great resource here.
Anything else you would like to mention at all? I
think kids sometimes are reluctant to sign up for Frisbee because they think it's not a real sport. And I would just encourage them. USAU, the governing body for Ultimate Frisbee in the United States, has a bunch of videos that really show how much of a real sport it really is, and how athletic the players are that play at the highest levels. I encourage them to at least give it a chance before dismissing it as an activity instead of a sport.